Hello, 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 hello. It is I, Madame Askew, and I am so delighted to be here with you for Friday night, tea time, and chit-chat and all sorts of silly shenanigans as we have every Friday night. So thank you for joining me and spending part of your Friday evening with me. For those of you who are regular viewers of Friday Night Tea, you know that this is the highlight of my week. So thank you very much for being here. And so I am very excited to chit chat with all of you. Hello, hello, hello. Thank you, Selena. I am feeling, if you will forgive the pun, I am feeling foxy tonight. I couldn't help it. The chapeau goes with the foxes in my little frock, and I just needed to, lean in to all the foxiness. Oh, hello, Malcolm. Malcolm is here. Hello, good evening, dear Malcolm. Oh, what a joy to have you here tonight. And hello, Dana. Hello, thank you, Cindy. It is a fox beret, June, Lady June Squirrel. I was apprised of its existence, and I had no resistance in the face of such cuteness and whimsy. I gave in. I gave in to the fox hat. I blame the ears, really. There's something very charming about them. You could have it like very straight up and down on your head, but I like it more to the side. Oh my goodness. There we go. So I like it. I like my little ears a bit askew. I am matchy, but not horribly matchy. I think it's a charming level of coordination, as it were. And the chapeau, it does sort of go with my hair. It's a little bit more orange than my actual hair, but I like to think it gives me a sort of rakish sensibility. So thank you, dear Andy. I'm feeling very foxy tonight. It's all about the foxes. I have a suspicion, if you remember, it was eons ago now in Ethernet terms, but what does the fox say? I suspect the fox says, when is tea? When am I getting my tea? When am I getting my scones? Stop chasing me through these ruddy fields. Please, let's stop. Let's have a nice chat. He just, Mr. Fox, Miss Fox, all the foxes, the foxes really just want to have a nice little cream tea. They might like a poached egg now and again, a little hollandaise, bit of elevensies, rather than being chased about by the hounds all the time. That's my suspicion. Thank you very much, Alicia. Thank you, Andy. I'm really quite in love with this hat. You can all thank Bill Bowden, who is responsible for alerting me to this fox's existence. And I had absolutely no resistance. I had about maybe 2 minutes of quibbling over whether I really needed another chapeau. It's wool, so it's also a warm-ish chapeau for August in the Sonoran Desert, and yet here I am, indoors, wearing this chapeau for tea time because it's too delightful for words. I love it. Oh no, the foxes love coronation chicken. They're very keen on coronation chicken. That's definitely a foxy favourite. Hello. Oh my goodness. Hello, Charity. Hello, Deborah. Thank you so much. Minutes. No, it was 15 seconds. You're correct, Dana. I did not last 2 minutes. I took long enough to look at the other colourways. So if you decide you need a Foxy chapeau in your life, and I will share the link because I am not one to ever hoard such delight to myself. So there is a black fox and I think a sort of grey Arctic looking fox. So you have some fox options, but I'm clearly a red fox, so I'm definitely ruddy little fox, and so I went with the colour that best matched my own hair. That's right, I wore Foxy beret, the kind you do not find in a second-hand store. However, I do think that dear Prince would have appreciated the fox beret. So it's one of those funny little things. How, the world is very complicated right now, and many of us are struggling with so many different challenges, difficult choices, difficult things to navigate, new hard challenges. I am no exception, and yet something as very, very simple and rather silly as the chapeau can just throw so much joy into the day. I received it in the post only 2 days ago. No, not even. I received it in the post last night. So I have not had it very long, and it's been sort of uncrumpling from its shipping. I could not wait. I've been so excited to share it with you. I've just been plotting all day. Just one of those moments that it's so fun to share the silliness, isn't it? So here I am. Oh, lovely Alicia. Truthfully, I adore foxes, and I would happily cavort with, foxes who wish to cavort with me in return. Domesticated, friendly foxes. They sound lovely. Oh, thank you, Deborah. Thank you for noticing my makeup tonight. I did, in fact, put a little bit of extra special into the makeup for the chapeau. Honestly, to be quite frank, I did my makeup for the hat. I wanted to bring a little, drama into my face, a little added oomph, to keep up with this fantastic hat. Do I have any tips for storing wool hats so the moths don't get to them? That's actually a really excellent question. Cedar, keeping them in an airtight container is good. I used to use these cedar sachets that I really love, but I cannot get a hold of them anymore. They were so potent. I know that mothballs are actually the best, but they are actually also toxic, and I have 2 delightful kitties, as you know, and I don't wish to have toxic mothballs kicking around. So I normally rely on cedar, but I haven't found a replacement for those sachets. So these days, one of the things I do periodically with some of my woolens is I actually put them in a sealed plastic container that's airtight and watertight, and I freeze them so nothing can get to them whilst they're in the freezer. So I do indeed actually often have hats wrapped up in my Frigidaire in the freezer section. So that is the thing I do, but it doesn't work as well with chapeaux that are not soft. So if you have a top hat or something like that, you don't want to put that in the freezer. You could accidentally crush it in there. So with that, I would really try and get a nice airtight sort of box. And also the other thing is wear things regularly. So bringing them out of their packaging, brushing them off, wearing them, making certain that there are no moths going after them. They won't usually try and eat them whilst they're on your person, so use the things regularly. Cedar rodent bedding. Charity, you're so smart. That is a wonderful cheap trick. Thank you very much. I mean, I might have to make little beds for all of my chapeaux in some little hat boxes. They're little cedar beds. The thing with cedar to remember is that it loses efficacy, and so you do have to replace the cedar. Once it stops smelling, you can recharge it with cedar oil. So if you have a cedar chest, you can recharge your cedar chest with cedar oil. But if you're using cedar sachets, they will wear out every 3 to 6 months approximately. So I'm assuming that the cedar bedding will also wear out, but it's going to be cheaper and you can, get more of it. So alright, so Tyson has a wonderful suggestion. In an airtight container, you don't need to keep it in the freezer. Just freeze it long enough to kill any larvae or eggs. So that is a thing I do. It kills other bugs as well. So that's very jolly, very handy. So I do. Robin, I promise I will be sharing the link, because if there were an army of us who showed up in Fox Chapeau, I would not be sad. So, good night, dear Andy. Thank you so much for stopping in for a bit. I know it's very late where you are. I hope that you and your family have done all right. There have been so many storms in that part of the world that Dereko, I know I say it wrong every time. I don't know if you had to manage that terrible weather, but I hope that you've all been all right. So, you, dear Dana, also have a wonderful evening. Please give my love to dear Malcolm as well, and Pumpkin, the kitty. You also have a wonderful evening. Thank you for joining as long as you could. It's very nice. Oh, right. Perfect. So, Charity uses the cedar chips, the shavings that you'd use for bedding, for her wool roving, and she puts it in a little lingerie bag, clever, and drops it in a box, and voila! The Dereko is still causing havoc. There's so much harrowing weather. Does anyone remember that sort of abysmal film, The Day After, I think it was called, where the world froze over in like 24 or 48 hours or something? Utterly absurd, but the weather was deeply dramatic. And I remember seeing that film and thinking, oh, Hollywood, you haven't been talking to any scientists again. You should really talk to scientists, and also maybe to some science fiction authors who also talk to scientists. It seems very unreasonable, but now I don't feel that it's maybe as unreasonable as I thought. Dereko. I'm going. Oh, is it Cho? Is it Cho or Co? I'm saying it like it's Italian. Day after tomorrow. Thank you, Andy. And Ian, I also liked the Wolves. I'm not really surprised that you liked the Wolves, although I am, representing for Fox and Kinds. Ooh, all right. Some more suggestions about moth prevention, which is moth away. You're right. I see Charity warning me of the inadvisability of my sort of tempting the fates with more absurd weather. You're correct. Cho, not Co. Oh my goodness. Well, derecho. Oh my goodness. Alright. Is that right? Did I get it? Derecho. Alright. I'm going to manage it at some point. So, I apologise. I really have been treating it as though it were an Italian word for reasons that are apparent only to me. That make absolutely no sense. So, I'm just checking up on the comments here. Oh my goodness. Our dear Joseph is here, the Minister of Time and Tranquility, who watches the day after tomorrow on the regular. So you're prepared to take sanctuary in the New York Library. You know, there are books in the library that they could have torn up to use for padding that we would not miss. The umpteenth copy of the almanac from, you know, that particular year, probably, because clearly it was wrong. And maybe the Encyclopedia Britannica, which would be woefully out of date. I think they went after some quite good books, if I recall. So, no, I apologise. It means right in Spanish. Alright, it's a Spanish word. That is my problem. That helps. Origin is always very helpful with attempting to have a more appropriate pronunciation. Oh my goodness, I forgot that Jake Gyllenhaal was in that film. And I mean, I only remember the cast like this much, so little. It feels like that film was a million years ago, and it felt like it was, you know, sort of hysterical and borrowing some absurd levels of trouble. But it's I think that we should not tempt fate. We should not laugh at that film anymore, is what I think. Oh no. Oh my goodness. Yeah, no, let us keep Queen Mab away. You are right, Fairy Godmother. Speaking of, what sort of offerings should we be leaving for the winter court to encourage them to stay Underhill for a little while longer, Fairy Godmother? I mean, on one hand, I am a bit selfish, and it is very warm here, and it has been very warm here for, I think it's 50 days. So part of me is like, oh no, winter sounds delightful. But winter here in the Sonoran Desert is a very different experience. So, oh my goodness. Oh, it's not even a cyclonic wind a la hurricane or tornado. I'm learning a lot about the derecho. Ha ha ha! Doing better on my pronunciation. No, Deborah Hensley-Tay, I feel that perhaps the entirety of both Fae courts have given us a pass this year here in the Sonoran Desert. They are just done with us. We are absurd. Oh dear. Oh, well, Karen, I do want you to have spring, but do you want summer? I know what your summer is bringing. Ah, goodness. Oh, we've got many fine comments here. Alright, good. Fingers crossed, Robin, on your adventure through the San Bernardino Mountains. I've been in those mountains. The interwebs are very spotty there. Oh dear. Oh dear. Oh, Fairy Godmother says she suspects Queen Mab might like any spare interns I have left. Oh. Well, Ooh, I hate to be sacrificing interns. Perhaps there are some interns who have gone over to the dark side and joined the agents of Lipton. They've already sacrificed themselves in a certain sense of things. But obviously I can't do without Ian or Handy or the Azar clan or my nephew, dear Captain Tight Pants. No, it's very difficult. But Reginald's that he tries very hard, but I also have suspicions that he might be a plant from the Caffeinotti. He has terrible taste in tea, really abysmal. He's always oversteeping things. Oh my goodness. So Robin's husband suggests that Queen Mab needs some rose or coffee or is that rosé, to head off her desire to join us. Joseph, I fear for Reginald. I cannot tell if he's gone to the agents of Lipton or if he might already be working with the Caffeinotti. Ivy suggests that we should use all the pumpkin spice things with little notes to request cooperation in a mild winter so that we can give them pumpkin spice next year. Excellent choice. No, never Micmac Tavisham. He will be with us forever, although everyone is to the four winds right now due to quarantine. The Grand Arbiter and I have not spoken of it much, but you will notice that we've been rooted in this time. We have not been time travelling nearly so much, or really any sort of travelling, and that is because we feel that it is so irresponsible to go either forward or backwards, but especially backwards in time, with the pandemic raging. So we have not been time travelling for these last 6 months, it's true, and we have also not been travelling in a sort of geographical sense either. We've just both stayed in our little quarantines. However, that means some of our delightful staff and compatriots are stranded in different eras right now. Micmac Tavisham has been writing us from 1883 with some regularity. He's there currently vacationing with his beau, his dear beloved, of whom I feel I cannot say more. It is obviously a matter of much discretion which Micmac Tavisham must address himself. So yeah, it has been very challenging. It has left me baking and cooking for myself. I have no pastry chef currently, which means I have not had a scone since March. No scones, none. If you can imagine the horror of living without scones. Oh my goodness, there's so much happening. Fairy Godmother says that Queen Mab may want an airship. That is a challenge. They are indeed full of iron, although iron's a bit heavy, so we try and keep ours more on the side of wood and less on the side of iron. There is still metal involved in airship construction, Oh my goodness. Deborah suggests coating the iron in plasti dip. I wonder if that would work. Would that be enough protection for the Fae? I mean, they don't seem to be bothered by my corsetry, so perhaps. Charity and Robin have claimed Mick McTavish for their ribbon ball team. That's excellent. I am certain he will be delighted. Ivy, I suspect you're right. The Time Lords have probably put a lock on 2020 Earth. Oh, it's true. And Deborah, it is indeed a secret romance. Mick McTavish will not even give us that many details. Either the Grand Arbiter and myself, we're all agog, we're all so deeply curious, and I have to tell you, before he goes visiting, he brushes his sideburns 100 strokes each. We all know about it. We pretend like we don't, because he's very serious butler with serious butlering business, but we all know because he counts every stroke out loud. It's very sweet. His sideburns are very, very shiny when he leaves to go visit. No, it is the tragedy of the lack of pastry has been a cross I shall bear for an indefinite amount of time unless I learn how to make my own pastry. Oh no! Oh, Lady June Squirrel actually has an excellent idea. A bamboo airship. That's really clever solution. No, Lady June Squirrel, this has been a really wretched year in so many ways. The lack of scones is only one piece of the wretchedness. The good news is everyone can have a fox shepherd. So, yes, Deborah, they are indeed the softest sideburns ever. I don't know if he uses a Mason Pearson brush, but now I'm very curious. I shall have to find a way to ask him very delicately when I have the opportunity to speak with him, which is hard to say when. Oh no, no, Fairy Godmother, we shall keep the bamboo airship option to ourselves. We won't tell Mab, we will not, your secrets are safe. Oh, thank you, Alicia has a good suggestion for scones. Thank you. Hello, Captain Evie, welcome. Oh, lovely. I think the biggest challenge actually here, Alicia, is it's so ruddy hot that baking is a terrible proposition. Oh, no, baking anything seems just the worst right now. Joseph, when it is a little bit less hot on the road, and I think that I can get the EG all the way to you without it melting, then I will happily bring you some EGs. Oh my goodness. Papier mâché for an airship. You know, that might work for the Fae. It would probably not work for fully mortal creatures. I fear we might put a foot through it. Papier mâché is so delicate. Robin, I do believe you have given your scone recipe at some point. We may have to put together a collection of temporal entourage quarantine recipes, as we've shared so many. We might need to make a little document where they're all corralled so we can find them. Yeah, no, Deborah Hensley-Tay is correct. It would have to be packed in a cooler. And even then, right now, I fear for the transit across that wasteland between the Phoenician capital, the metropolis, and here. Oh my goodness. Karen would like to know what an EG is. It is spelled with all the E's, Karen. E-E-G-E-E. It is a treasure of Tucson. Something that was created here and that can mostly only be found here. It is a icy chills concoction filled with real fruits, and it's very, very cold and incredibly refreshing, and it is beloved by Tucsonans. So yes, also you can get food there, but I think most of us go for the icy, slushy, cold, fruity drinks. Oh, Chris Marble sticks with Quarantinis, gin and emergency. That actually does sound... That sounds strangely appealing, Chris. Especially if the gin is quite cold. Maybe put a little slice of orange there, just as a bit of a garnish. Or maybe a cherry. A little umbrella. Yes, Robert. different group. Very similar spelling though. And Lady June Squirrel is correct that you can add booze to it. Karen, it's akin to a slushy, but it is not a slushy. It is its own special thing. It's also made with real fruit, which has an impact on the quality. Yep, there, Tyson has a better description. Thank you very much. Should Mab arrive in the Sonoran Desert, I will personally take her for an EG's. If she comes in the summer, we'll all get her watermelon EG's. Somehow we'll make it happen. Ian has been soaking tea leaves in gin. How's that going? It sounds delightful. Are you getting tea-infused gin? Speaking of, I did have a plot, although we've gotten far into how to avoid terrible weather, how to appease the fae, and our beverage choices in the quarantine. Speaking of, look at this tea. I totally matched it to my hat. I did. So that was magic. It was actually a bit of serendipity, if you'll excuse the pun. But it is a perfect match to go with chapeau. It's a lovely, lovely second flush Darjeeling, actually from the Netherlands. So it's beautiful, and it was a wonderful gift. It's from a place called Klaverblad, but my Dutch accent is very poor. So thank you. Oh, gunpowder gin, if you haven't had it, is a wonderful thing, says Alicia. I have not, and now I'm intrigued. Gin is one of those drinks, it's one of those spirits that is beloved amongst steampunks everywhere. Not all steampunks, but it's sort of part of our language of liquids, if you will. Tea, gin, absinthe. going to find at least one steampunk at any gathering who likes those things. So, and sometimes that steampunk is me. So if I'm there, I like all three of those things. Oh, good evening. Oh, how delightful. Lloyd has been enjoying some of the Sanctuary Online Festival in the UK, produced by John Naylor and crew. The Grand Arbiter and I had originally intended to be there this weekend. So it's there's a little bit of sadness in my heart that we're not there, but I'm so proud of everyone who's been making really good choices to protect the community and themselves, and also they've been very clever about making certain that there's still an online virtual experience. I know Karen has a panel this weekend and she shared the time. Alicia, yes, as Andy says, bingo, steampunk bingo. You definitely win. I don't know what you win, but you definitely win. Oh, so Ian has been steeping his gin in pomegranate white tea and a Moroccan mint green tea. That actually sounds like really beautiful gins, Ian. Beautiful. And for those of you who have not gotten to see us do all of our shenanigans live and in person, Ian is our original intern. He is he has graduated from intern to butler, and he is really a tremendous young man and very keen and very knowledgeable about tea. Oh, and Ivy's making tea cordial. That sounds delightful. Lloyd, I do hope deeply to that the Grand Arbiter and I will be there perhaps in 2022. We don't think it will be possible next year. Things are so in disarray. It's going to take at least a year to get everything sorted again. But we do hope, hope springs eternal. We'd love to go to Asylum, and we really wish to do our grand European tour. And we were hoping to do it for our friendship anniversary, which is in August. So, yes. Yay for Ian, indeed. Ian is a delight. He has been keeping us in tea for a very long time now. 8 years, Ian, I think. I think that's right, 8 years. So, Anne, Shirley and Diana drinking too much was it blackberry or currant cordial? I think it was blackberry cordial in that particular scene when they got just drunk as a lord, actually. Oh my goodness. I have not had arak in a long time, Alicia. But it is it's a bit of an acquired flavour, isn't it? It's strong, but it's delightful. Oh, beautiful. No, I agree, Lloyd. 2021 may be the sequel to this Annus Horribilis, as Lloyd says. So 2022 is the best for sorts of plotting international travel, as it were. Fingers crossed. Raspberry cordial. I wasn't even remotely right. Thank you, Cindy. Thank you very much. So, I love that moment when they are being so posh and having their tea, and oh dear, everything goes so awry, poor things. And Morella is so amused and trying not to laugh. 2 gin bottles Alicia hasn't even cracked yet. My goodness. Well, gin is such a good summer drink too. Although I have gin, but I need to replenish my tonic, actually. That's the big problem. I do like it in the summer though. 2 years to get over it with the Spanish flu, Karen says. Well, yeah. So that's a thing we're going to experience. His laugh or cry sometimes. So here's a really awkward segue, so bear with me, but it does actually relate a little bit during this time of pandemic and quarantine, as we're all trying to take good precautions for our health, for the health of others. We're all wearing masks, which is very, very important. And so the tea punks, our dear friends, those delightful creatures, those delightful scientists of tea, wonderful adventurers that they are with the Tea Adventurers Guild, have created tea sachets for your mask. So if you're wearing a mask for a long time, you can slot these in to the same place you slot in your filter, into those little pockets if you're using a filter. If you're not, you can just slot in the sachet on its own. And I understand from the scientist who sent this to me that the sachet will last 2 weeks and give you a really sweet smelling tea experience, so you're not just smelling your own breath all the time. It sort of makes it a bit more pleasant. I have some Companions Delight, which is one of my favourite teas by them, so it's perfect. Let's see, we've got Charity, everyone needs some of this. I'm just going to, everyone needs the tea punks. Oh yes, this is my sort of hypnosis. How's that working? Oh dear, we have lilac gin. Oh. Ooh, beautiful. That sounds nice. Lady June Squirrel says all gin bottles are cracked before they have a chance to enter her house. Clearly, when the time permits, we need to have a social distancing gin hour here, or perhaps at your abode. But when it is not 42 degrees Celsius out, or 109, oh dear, oh my goodness, fairy tea cordial. That sounds exquisite, Ivy. I love it. I love it. Lady June Squirrel, you know, I wish we could ask your mama as well. I wish I could ask my grandmama, and or perhaps more my grandpapa, as he was old enough to remember living through the Spanish flu epidemic. They came through all right, but I think they lost people that they loved, and they wouldn't talk about it very much, honestly. My grandmama's favourite auntie died from the Spanish flu, and that was about all I knew about it. You know, Cindy, I am going to make you a care packet because I ship to Canada. So, you will get some by way of me. If you let me know if you have a specific favourite, if it's shipping right now, make certain you have that one. Otherwise, I will just send you something really scrummy. So there's no reason that you should have to do without. Oh, Lady June Squirrel's mama was born in 1904. So yeah, no, roughly the same age as my grandpapa. A tent city in the cricket grounds for quarantine for Spanish flu in Adelaide, Karen says, in Australia. That would be like, I suppose that'd be a bit like a football field-ish, or maybe a soccer pitch here. I don't think a baseball diamond is large enough, but I'm not really certain. But cricket field is long, but it's a rectangle, not a square. So the great picnic, not the most cheery picnic though, was it? So no, we do have a long haul ahead of us, and without being drawn too far into despondency tonight, because we're cheered by the Fox Chapeau and gin and company and tea and each other and our little community in our corner of the etherwebs, our tales of daring do and the fae and all of our adventures. These things keep our spirits up, as it were. It's very important right now to find those things that help you find some buoyancy. Not that I am suggesting you need to always be happy or to be positive about everything at the exception of your own well-being. That won't do either. But you need something that helps you step back from the despair, because we do have a long haul ahead of us, and it is going to be hard. I don't think there's any other way to describe it. Forcibly upbeat, Charity says. Indeed. I agree, Captain Evie. We are very fortunate that we have our virtual connections, that we have the etherwebs and this ability to keep up with each other. It's also a really lovely time to write postcards and to send cards. I've been so fortunate to receive quite a few postcards and cards from friends, more than usual in the last few months, and I just really adore every note. And of course I'm a frequent sender of mail, so I've been writing a bit more myself, which has been very, very nice. Cindy would like to try the Duchess Dream. I'll see what I can make happen for you, Cindy. So, the chapeau, I have not given you the information because it's at a very strange little shop on the etherwebs, and I will have to actually link to it. But I will do that. I will post the link. And if I forget immediately after tea, just remind me. I'm happy to be reminded. Oh my goodness, Ivy's been quite busy. She quit smoking and made an entire brown bustle skirt with gigantic pockets last weekend. Congratulations, Ivy, that's marvellous. Oh no, Karen, I've learned so much more technology in the last few months than I'd ever used. it's been quite the adventure, I have to admit. Oh, you want pockets that will hold 4 bottles of wine. That's fantastic. And also, Robin does know where to find me tomorrow morning, because I will be here at 10 a.m. Pacific time. That's Seattle, in the United States, with the Grand Arbiter. I'll be in the comments and he will be live streaming. And who knows? Last week we learned about Asphalt Dan, which was a delight. So who knows what's coming? No, I think we've all had to learn quite a bit of technology, but also there's been a wonderful renaissance about, of baking and other homey, wonderful skills as we've all been spending more time with each other. I think there's been this sorts of lovely reconnection with things like correspondence. I have ever so many calls on Mr. Bell's device, which I am supremely grateful for. And I do have my moments where it is hard to be buoyant myself, and where I do feel the despair at the current situation and deep worry for truly every one of you, for the Grand Arbiter, for all of our interns, for each of you. And then I'm reminded of the power of the ridiculous and the importance of laughter, and in truth that is largely what's getting me through. Also this hat, it's really good. I'm in love with this hat. So yeah, no, thank you Charity, who has been writing dossiers for each of these characters. Thank you. So Poncho Papa is very silly indeed, and so the Grand Arbiter and I've been talking about perhaps creating a wiki for the temporal entourage, which, speaking of technology and things to learn and discover, that is a whole new entire area of learning for me. If by chance any of you knows anything about setting up a wiki, please let me know so I may throw myself on your mercy and ask questions. And I truly love this fairy godmother. Distance alone cannot separate hearts that beat in time together. That's beautiful. That's a glorious quote. Thank you for sharing it. And let's see. Dear Cindy is saying there's a shortage of mason jars locally since so many people are pickling and canning this year. Cindy, I wanted to collect a few mason jars for things, for projects, not for pickling, because I do not engage in pickles. And I am terrified of canning, actually. My grandmama instilled in me a deep, deep terror of canning. But I have not been able to acquire a single mason jar at a reasonable price. The price for mason jars currently is criminal, and I know it is a seller's market, but who knew there'd be a shortage on mason jars? My goodness. So how did Poncho Papa's loom get fixed? Fairy Godmother says. I don't know if it has been restored to full functionality, Fairy Godmother, or if we even fully discussed that bit of the story. So it remains a question. Karen and June both recommend that Gail Carragher would know. She would. I try not to impose too much on her kindness, but I may ask her. Oh, the loops. Oh, good. Thank goodness Charity is on this, I must tell you. Ooh, plum jam, freezer jams. Oh, Cindy, that sounds so lovely. Alicia, I believe you that you canned everything. I understand that most everything can indeed be canned or tinned. But Grandmama spoke of canning explosions and the dangers thereof, and or not doing things properly and giving everyone botulism. That was her favourite story, to tell me that I could give everyone botulism, which really, truthfully, seems like one of the rudest things I could do, and so I have essentially avoided any attempts at canning. Thank you, dear June. I would be very grateful for your mason jars. That would be lovely. Thank you very much. And Fairy Godmother, I promise that there shall be no pixies in mason jars in this bungalow. So, no. I do have quite the, sort of colony of teacup pixies who've taken over my tea cupboards. They really, I don't think they're going to migrate. Normally, it's a seasonal migration. They come, south and then they move back north. Although, why they come south for the summer and go north for the winter, I'm really not entirely certain. They're very unclear in their descriptions when I asked. But they seem quite satisfied here, and I believe they've made a treaty with Monsieur Gâteau. I see them chatting sometimes. They're clearly plotting something. I don't know what it is. I have concerns. Ooh, lovely. So Robin made some apricot jam. Oh my goodness. So no, I'm so glad you've come back from the flower catastrophe, Robin. That was harrowing. Oh my goodness, June has a canning kettle. Oh, that's delightful. Deborah Hensley Tay says it's too hot here for canning. It's too hot here currently for everything. I do hope to be more involved in some sourdough bread making and such, but as soon as I had everything in place to start doing sourdough, it became so hot here that the thought of baking bread is absolutely anathema. No pixies in anything they don't want to be in. Right you are, Ivy. Oh, that's lovely. Captain Evie's sister is a very inveterate canner, I believe. Free the pixies. Yes. We believe in freeing the pixies here, allowing them to make their own choices, even if they choose to come south for the summer and spend summer here when it's so hot, and then travel back north for the winter where it's very, very cold. Perhaps they just like extreme weather. I don't know. Karen, in Australia, do you also have teacup pixies, and do they travel from extreme to extreme, or do they prefer to merely lounge about the Gold Coast? These are the questions that kick around in my little noggin. Oh goodness. Congratulations, Robin, on saving your sourdough starter. Charity, I appreciate their snowbird lifestyle as well, except that it's the reverse. It's the reverse of what we normally experience, which is people coming here for the winter and leaving for the summer, and that Pixies decided to arrive for the summer. Really just so shocking. But they're very happy. I don't know if this colony of teacup pixies will ever actually leave. I have, of course, given them certain teacups to keep for their own permanently. I have requested that they allow my favourites to be available for tea time, but some of the teacups are clearly never going to be used for my purposes again. They are really quite happy with them though, and the things they can do with a sugar bowl, really just astonishing, very clever. So oh, let's see here. All small fae, including teacup pixies, are contrary, and we can get directionally challenged without a proper moral compass, says Fairy Godmother. And of course, Fairy Godmother would know much better than I. Oh no, the moral compass no longer works. That sounds also accurate. All the small fae, of course, are creatures of chaos, which is part of why I love them so very much. Oh, they prefer the Sunshine Coast to the Gold Coast in Australia. Too many tourists at the Gold Coast, says Karen. That makes sense. Though they do seem to be a lot in Adelaide all year round. I suspect Aunt Enid knows something about that, Karen. And Karen suspects they hog the air conditioner in summer, and that's why we lose power regularly. Ah, that explains so much. So Karen used to live in Queensland. And the Sunshine Coast, she says, is far superior to the Gold Coast. I believe you, Karen. You have, of course, the most first-hand experience with both of these places. Ah, oh, lovely. Oh, that tea is really good. So nice. Aunt Enid is dealing with fairies at the moment, says Karen. And if you have not had the opportunity, I know we read one of Karen's books for our book club, and it was really lovely. Thank you again, Karen, for being our guest. But I do highly recommend her Aunt Enid series. The first book is out and the second book is coming out, or is it just out, I believe, something like that. Karen will correct me. They're very, very good. And you can get them digitally, so even if you are not in Australia, you can have access to these books, so that's really lovely. And you know, if you also wish to read more about the fae, the fairy kinds, and the sorts of magical creatures and their intersection with Steampunklandia, I cannot recommend Robert Darlane's books highly enough. So do read more about Copper Cove, do read more about Peevely Manor, and the entire beautiful cast of characters there. They're so good, they're lovely. Macaulay, they're just wonderful stories. So Oh, right. So the second book is due later this year. Thank you, Karen, for confirming. But it is coming. And I hope that your health improves. I think this is the year for it, isn't it? For all manner of challenges. So, and no, I agree, June. I love Robert's books. I know I tend to be very enthusiastic in my praise for Robert and Karen, and as we're friends, it could look a little biased, but the truth is I read their work first and liked their work first, and then got to know them and liked them as well. So do read Peevely Manor. Do read it, Karen. It's so good. Oh, so good. I love all of those stories. They've become comfort reads, actually. So I've read them several times. Oh, no, the black dog is on the prowl, isn't he? For many of us. Oh, and the Iron Druid series, which Robin mentions, I think has also been recommended by dear Miss Gale and is on my list of things to read. I keep being suggested all of these wonderful things to read. My TBR list is so long, it is absurd. It's fortunate that I generally read 2 to 3 books a week, because I don't know how I would keep up otherwise. Oh, Cindy, that makes me very, very pleased that you are enjoying the book recommendations and the authors. There is a post I shared today to the Facebook page that's a Patreon post. It went first to the Patreon subscribers, but it is now a public post, and it's a bit of a deep dive on some of my favourite steampunk reads that do not happen in England or in the British Isles. They're more diverse, they're more inclusive, and I cannot say this often enough, and I regularly feel that I do not say it with sufficient eloquence, but I do not have interest in limiting our steampunk worlds, not only for my own enjoyment. I want to experience the entirety of the world, but also I never ever wish to make people feel as though they don't have a place, or they aren't welcome, or there isn't a seat at the table. I will be honest, there's always a seat at my table for everyone. If I have to add in leaves, build a whole new table, shove tables together, create chairs out of packing crates and tuffets and a stack of books, I will. If I have to beat down the weeds with my cane, I will. If I must unleash the hatpin menace, I will do that thing to make certain there is always a seat at my table for anyone who wishes to be there. And so that portion of sharing steampunk and telling steampunk tales is very important to me. A long time ago, I'm about to rant, and then I promise I'll say something nice. There is so much room to explore, Karen and Charity. You are so right, you're so right. But many, many, many years ago, I had the pleasure, somewhat dubious in parts, but mostly a pleasure, to be on a panel about multiculturalism in steampunk, which was a buzzword at the time. Really, there were some lacking elements to this panel. Some big glaring challenges for the panel. There was one beautiful highlight of that panel, and that is that S.M. Sterling was the author guest of honour, and so he was on that panel, and it was such a joy to panel with him and have the opportunity to meet him and speak with him and hear him speak to the subject. But part of the problem was that everyone on that panel was very Caucasian. We were not a very multicultural looking panel ourselves. So the panel itself was very limited in perspective, sadly. But the worst thing was that one of the panel guests said the most outrageous thing, and it is the only time I've ever been inspired to near fisticuffs on a panel. Unfortunately, I maintained my professionalism in the face of outrageous statements, if I may say so. But a different individual, I will not call him a gentleman, as I think it does not apply in this case, but an individual who was a writer of some variety, proclaimed that steampunk could not happen outside of England or North America because no other part of the world created technology. And my darlings, if I had had a hat pin, it would have been the hat pin menace. I'm not going to lie. I felt very impassioned, and ever since that moment I have really been, not on a crusade exactly, but I felt very strongly this is so important to speak up about these things, and usually I allude, usually I'm a little bit less direct. I like to share my perspective, I like to educate, I like to share resources and empower people to find their own answers. But sometimes someone is so very wrong, and this was one of those times. So yeah, no. No, you all rather took the words from my mouth. Yeah, no, it was really, really bad. It's really bad. I did say what for me was the equivalent of calling him out for a meeting at dawn with teacups. I stood up because I'm very short. If you've met me in person, you know I'm very short and I can actually be hidden behind a table. So I stood up so that everyone could really see me, and I leaned over and I looked down the table at this individual. Mr. Sterling was between me and the other author person, and the look on Mr. Sterling's face, he was really looking at this other person with sort of a combination of shock, despair and disgust. And so I looked down at him and I said, "Sir, I'm afraid you are wrong and I must disagree with you," which is very strong words from me on a panel. So fortunately for myself and everyone else, I did not have any hat pins on my person that day, and there were no fisticuffs, and there was not an assignation at dawn with teacups, so everyone walked away. But but it was one of those things. It was really, you hear things, you read about things, people talk about experiencing terrible attitudes and running into terrible individuals who make them feel unwelcome, and it can be so hard to imagine who these people are, because I know my experience is very contrary to that. I meet lovely people in steampunk. I find a welcome, a ready welcome. People are so kind, and perhaps it's in part because I've cultivated kind friends, and so I increase that sort of reservoir and treasure trove of kindness as I go. But then one meets someone like this individual, and it is so revealing. He really felt that he was perfectly reasonable and that it was perfectly logical, and I suspect I did not change his mind at all that day. But in truth, I was more concerned about letting everyone else who was there to hear the panel know that he was quite wrong. So I do like that there's a whole queue of people ready to unleash their hatpins. And I agree, Robin, if our dear author PJ Lee Clark had been on that panel, he would have been taken to school. It's true. And there are quite a few other scholars and authors and wonderful individuals in the steampunk community who would have been excellent panelists for that panel. To be truthful, I felt like I did my part and I used my knowledge, but that I was not the best choice for that panel. That there could have been better choices, perhaps not locally, but it is a missed opportunity that there was not more representation on that panel. It's so important. Representation matters. It is something I come to know as a truth in my bones increasingly as I age and as I know more people. But more to that, thorough pummeling with soggy biscuits. I know, we'll make him eat all the soggy biscuits and we'll serve him Lipton. So I think this is really important to at least broach and bring up, especially right now, for so many reasons. But I have been thinking about it more because there was a really terrible incident 2 weeks ago now that we haven't spoken about much here. And that was that there was a terrible white supremacist, white nationalist who tried to set up shop in a big way in steampunk, and she was very obvious in her racism. She was very obvious in her hatefulness. The number of red flags were well, it was just a sea of red, really. There was one giant red flag, a whole battalion of red flags, and the community came together and moved swiftly to shut her down, to drive her out, to make it clear she wasn't welcome. It's certainly very good and heartwarming and important that such an overt racist, such an overtly hateful person is drummed out and we make it clear that they're not welcome. The thing I want everyone to remember, however, is that overt racist person saw people like that gentleman, no, he's not a gentleman, like that person on that panel, saying those sorts of milder things, and she thought she would be welcomed. So sometimes we do have to talk about these harder, more subtle things to make sure that we are keeping the pathway to our table open. It's no good to have a seat at the table if people cannot make it there because they are wading through the weeds and the swamp and the dark woods and they cannot get through the brambles. So we always have to be certain that we're also clearing a way to our metaphorical table. Oh no, it yeah, no, Alicia is correct. She and her kin have been shut down quite thoroughly, thankfully, and it went very fast. That moved, I think, across the course of four days, maybe 5, 4.5. It was very fast. People were really swift to move. Wild West Con and TeslaCon both made really eloquent, lovely statements about it. The website is down, the Facebook page is down. She's off of Twitter, she's off of Instagram. She might rear her head again, but so might someone else. She's not alone. She is just very overt. So remember that there are people who are saying these things, but more covertly, or they're saying similar things that are less shocking and outrageous, but have the same meaning. And we have to keep our weather eye out for those statements as well, and be prepared to stand against them and to speak up. It's something we talked about weeks and weeks ago. It's hard to fathom how much has happened in the last 2-3 months. Honestly, it feels more like 2-3 years. But weeks ago, we spoke about how exhausted our friends who are people of colour are right now, and our queer friends are, and our female friends are. There's a lot of struggle here in North America and all over the world to preserve civil rights and to further civil rights, and people are very, very tired. They've been fighting for a long time. So when we individually have the energy and can stand up and speak up, that is a thing we can do. It's less dramatic and it's less romantic and it's less exciting than going to a protest, and it's less flamboyant than having a fight on the internet. But I think these moments of speaking up are incredibly important. So I don't have any advice for how to do that, but I encourage you to keep that in mind and to go forth in the knowledge that you at least will not be alone. You will always have fellowship here and support here in the temporal entourage. So yeah, no, as Captain Evie says, social justice is exhausting but necessary, and so important. Oh, let's see. Karen says one of the things she loves about steampunk and keeps her here is the welcoming people who accept her for her anxiety-ridden self and accept others for who they are. Yes, I think that is the best of steampunk, and it is very good. And as I said, my experience has been of that variety, and I'm so grateful all the time. And I'm so deeply, deeply grateful that here in our corner, our little pocket of the ether webs, we do have this welcoming and kind and thoughtful community. It's very important. So we clap for all kinds of Tinkerbells, says Fairy Godmother. Yes, indeed. Oh, Ivy, that's wonderful. Ivy says they may find her in their path, the grumpiest non-smoker in the world, with a sock full of last week's biscuits, oh that is dire, and some spare grapefruits. They are in trouble, my dears. So, with that very impassioned moment, thank you for bearing with me. I encourage you, if you are subscribed to the Patreon, to visit and enjoy today's post that went live at 7 a.m. Pacific. It is all about Ankara fabric, which is steeped in the history of colonialism, if you excuse the pun. So is tea, actually. But I really enjoyed putting that together for all of you. It is a fabric that I'm really fascinated by and I love. I have not worked with it very much, but I really adore it, and it was a great pleasure to pull more of that work together to share with you. And of course we also have the reading list that I put together several weeks ago for Goodreads in steampunk outside of Albion. So I hope you enjoy all of those. It is my small sort of piece of trying to make steampunk increasingly safe, inclusive, welcoming, which the Grand Arbiter and I are both very passionate about. Thank you, Cindy. Thank you so much. I'm so happy you enjoyed it, and thank you all. I adore each and every one of you with all my heart. Thank you so much for our wonderful Patreon subscribers. I think we say this every week now, at least once a week, but you are making all of this possible. Our live streams, the sew-alongs, the storytelling, the Legos, all of the nonsense that we're able to keep doing even outside of convention time. You are enabling that to happen, and you are also keeping my kitties in kibble and tuna and keeping me and the Grand Arbiter in tea. Thank you with all my heart for that. Thank you, dear Robert, for sharing the link. As he says, never obligated, always appreciated. Absolutely. So please go forth with this Friday night with happy hearts, full of the love and good cheer that we shared here tonight. Do take care of yourselves. Stay home if you are able. If you must go out, wear a mask. And put a tea sachet in it from the tea punks. I just had to get that in again because it's so... I love those. But wear a mask. Wear a mask. For yourself, for others, for everyone around you. Wash your hands. Take care of yourselves. I will say it again and again. You are treasures. You are irreplaceable. I cannot bear to lose a single one of you. So you must take very good care of yourselves, as I cannot take care of you in the way I wish. The Grand Arbiter will be here tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Please come and spend time with him. He, like a fairy, will waste away if he does not have your company. He needs your wonderful engagement. He wants to tell you more absurd stories about more ridiculous, delightful folk heroes of Lego variety. Who knows? We've had Asphalt Dan and Pancho Papa and all manner of delightful creatures appear at our Saturday morning, so please join us then. Karen, please share your information again in the Temporal Entourage group rather than directly to the page, so that we may all see it more readily. Things posted to the Madame Askew Grand Arbiter page tend to get lost unless we post them ourselves. It's the nature of Facebook. But I always encourage you to share these things to the Temporal Entourage group. That is why we have it. We want you to be able to direct the conversation as well. We want to see the things you are interested in. And if you are an artist making art as part of your living, we want you to be able to share the things that you are doing and proud of currently. So please share in the Temporal Entourage. So, and also please post your pictures of your ongoing projects in the So Askew group or in the Temporal Entourage or in the book club group, whichever one is most appropriate to the project. I truly wish to see your projects, and also the colouring book pages. If you've coloured them, I would like to see it. Give me great joy. In the meantime, somehow I managed not to cry tonight, and I think it's just because I was so enraged remembering that panel So thank you for allowing me to go down memory lane with all of you. Thank you for spending another wonderful Friday night with me. Be safe. Take care. I will see you tomorrow morning in the comments, and otherwise, watch for me in other venues online.